Imagine a quiet supermarket aisle erupting into chaos as a police officer pulls a gun on an innocent black woman. For no reason but the color of her skin. Shocking? Unbelievable? This heart-pounding true story of courage, prejudice, and redemption will grip you until the very end. Can one woman's dignity topple a wall of hatred? Watch to find out. We'd love to know. Where are you watching this from? Drop a comment below and join our community of truth seekers. Your voice matters, and we can't wait to hear it. In the quiet town of Willow Creek, the Green Meadow Supermarket stood as a vibrant hub of daily life, its polished aisles lined with colorful products and bustling with shoppers. On a crisp spring afternoon, Clara Thompson, a black woman in her mid-50s, navigated the spice aisle with a quiet focus. Her worn jeans, faded teal t-shirt, and threadbare cardigan set her apart from the neatly dressed crowd. Her shopping cart held only the essentials: a loaf of whole-grain bread, a jug of milk, and a few cans of sardines. Clara's hands, weathered by years of hard work and sacrifice, clutched a jar of cumin, her deep brown eyes scanning the label with care. There was a grace to her movements, a quiet strength that spoke of a life shaped by resilience and dignity. Unbeknownst to Clara, a storm was brewing. Across the aisle, Officer Laura Bennett, a 30-year-old policewoman, stood with her blonde hair pulled into a tight, immaculate bun. Her crisp uniform, adorned with a name tag reading L. Bennett, gleamed under the fluorescent lights. But she wasn't on duty. Her shift had ended, and she'd stopped by the supermarket to grab ingredients for a quick dinner. Laura's sharp green eyes, however, were not on the shelves but on Clara. To Laura, Clara's modest attire, lingering gaze, and black skin were not signs of a careful shopper, but red flags of suspicion. Her heart, hardened by years of unchecked prejudice, pounded with assumptions, her lips curling into a faint sneer. The air in aisle 7 shifted as Laura's voice sliced through the supermarket's gentle hum. "Hey, you!" she barked, her tone sharp and accusing, drawing the attention of nearby shoppers. Clara turned, her warm brown eyes meeting Laura's cold, piercing stare. A flicker of surprise crossed her face, but her composure held firm. "Yes, officer. Are you speaking to me?" Clara's voice was soft, steady, carrying a quiet authority that belied her simple appearance. "Who else?" Laura snapped, stepping closer, her boots clicking ominously on the linoleum floor. Her eyes raked over Clara's clothes, lingering on the frayed hem of her cardigan, with undisguised contempt. "What are you doing, sneaking around like that? Planning to steal something?" "People like you always do." The words dripped with venom, each syllable laced with a racism so blatant it hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Shoppers froze, their murmurs fading into a stunned silence. Clara's cheeks flushed with a righteous anger, but her years of navigating hardship had taught her to channel fury into focus. She straightened, her gaze locking onto Laura's. "Officer, I'm just shopping, like everyone else," she said, her voice calm but firm, carrying the weight of a lifetime of dignity. "Please watch your words. Respect is owed to everyone, regardless of how they look." Laura's face reddened, her pride wounded by the rebuke. To be corrected publicly by someone she deemed beneath her was intolerable. Her hands clenched into fists, her voice rising to a near shout. "Respect? You dare lecture me?" she roared, her eyes blazing with fury. In a moment of reckless, heart-stopping madness, she yanked her Glock 19 from its holster. The metallic click of the gun being cocked echoed through the aisle like a death knell, a sound that froze the blood of everyone nearby. "Hands up, against the shelf now, or I'll shoot." Screams erupted, shattering the silence. A glass jar slipped from a shopper's hand, exploding on the floor in a cascade of pickles and brine. Customers scrambled, some diving behind shelves, others fumbling for their phones to record the nightmare unfolding before them. A child's wail pierced the chaos, and the air grew thick with fear. Clara stood motionless, not out of fear, but in disbelief at the officer's unhinged actions. Her eyes flicked to the gun's dark barrel, then lifted to meet Laura's, which burned with a dangerous mix of rage and panic. There was no panic in Clara's gaze, only a steely resolve, a profound sadness, and a flicker of something deeper. The wisdom of someone who had faced far greater dangers. Slowly, deliberately, Clara raised her hands to shoulder height, palms open, her movements precise and unhurried. She did not lean against the shelf as Laura demanded, choosing instead to stand tall, her dignity a silent rebuke to the officer's aggression. Her eyes never left Laura's, her gaze sharp and analytical, as if assessing not a threat, but a puzzle to be solved. The crowd held its breath, the tension in aisle 7 coiling tighter with each passing second. Who was this unassuming woman, standing unshaken before a loaded gun? Why had Laura, a sworn protector, spiraled into such madness? And what would happen in this fragile, life-or-death moment? Moments earlier, Laura Bennett had been simmering with frustration. Her shift had been grueling. Hours of paperwork, a heated argument with a colleague, and the weight of a recent performance review that had criticized her attitude. As she pushed her small cart through the supermarket, her mind was a tangle of resentment and exhaustion. A 5-year veteran of the Willow Creek Police Department, Laura carried a reputation for arrogance and bias, traits that had earned her both allies and enemies among her peers. Raised in a privileged, insular world, she viewed those unlike her, especially people of color or the working class, with a condescension that bordered on contempt. Her badge was not just a symbol of authority, but a shield for her insecurities, a tool she wielded carelessly to assert her dominance. When her eyes fell on Clara in the spice aisle, Laura's prejudices flared like a match to dry tinder. Cheap clothes, black skin, lingering too long. To her, these were not the signs of a woman carefully comparing prices or searching for a specific spice. They were proof of ill intent, a shoplifter in the making. Her pulse quickened, her mind racing with assumptions. Without a shred of evidence, without consulting store security or the manager, Laura made a snap decision to act. She abandoned her cart and marched toward Clara, her boots pounding the floor with purpose. "Where's your ID?" Laura demanded, her voice loud enough to turn heads. Shoppers glanced over, their curiosity piqued by the brewing confrontation. Clara, startled by the rudeness, frowned slightly but kept her tone even. "I'm at a grocery store, officer. I don't carry papers." "No ID?" Laura sneered, her lip curling. "Got money for that cart, or are you just gonna grab and run?" Her eyes flicked to Clara's sparse items, bread, milk, sardines, her expression growing more contemptuous. "Why are you even here messing up a nice place like this? Stick to your own kind." The racist barbs cut deep, each word a deliberate wound. Clara felt the blood rush to her face, her heart pounding with a mix of anger and sorrow. But she was no stranger to such hatred, and years of overcoming adversity had forged a steel core within her. She took a slow breath, her voice steady as she responded. "Officer, you're harassing me for no reason," she said, her words clear and sharp. "Your words are unprofessional, discriminatory, and a violation of the conduct expected of a law enforcement officer. You're targeting me because of my skin and my clothes." The crowd, now gathering at the edges of the aisle, murmured in shock. A few nodded in agreement, their phones already recording. Laura's ego shattered under the weight of Clara's calm, precise rebuke. To be called out publicly by someone she scorned was unbearable. Her face flushed crimson, her hands trembling with rage. "You accuse me of discrimination?" she roared, her voice echoing off the shelves. "You think you can talk back to a cop?" In a blind fury driven by wounded pride and a desperate need to reassert control, Laura drew her gun. "I bet you're armed," she shouted, her voice cracking with hysteria. "Hands up, or I'll shoot." The baseless accusation was a flimsy justification for her actions, but in her mind, it was enough. Panic swept the store like wildfire. Customers screamed, pushing each other to escape the aisle. A display of canned goods toppled, the clatter adding to the chaos. The store manager, Henry Walsh, a gentle man in his 50s with wire-rimmed glasses, stepped forward, his hands raised in a plea for peace. "Officer, please, calm down," he urged, his voice trembling. "Put the gun away. There are families here." "Back off," Laura barked, waving the gun so wildly that Henry stumbled back, his face pale with fear. "This is police business. Stay out of it." Amid the chaos, Clara remained an island of calm. Her past, decades of navigating high-stakes crises, from battlefields to boardrooms, had honed her ability to stay composed under pressure. She saw Laura for what she was, Not just angry, but scared, unraveling under the weight of her own prejudice and insecurity. This was a dangerous situation, but Clara knew it was not without a solution. She just needed to act with precision, to find the right moment to shift the tide. The tension in aisle 7 was a living thing, coiling around the terrified onlookers like a serpent. Laura's gun trembled in her hands, her finger hovering over the trigger, her eyes wild with a mix of fury and fear. Clara, her hands still raised to shoulder height, locked eyes with her, her gaze unwavering. The crowd held its breath, the silence broken only by the whimper of a child and the soft hum of fluorescent lights. It was time for Clara to act, not with force, but with the quiet power of truth. "Officer Bennett," Clara said, her voice slicing through the silence like a blade, clear and commanding. She'd noted the name tag pinned to Laura's chest. "What is your badge number?" Laura blinked, thrown off by the unexpected question. "What? Why do you need that?" she stammered, her voice losing its edge. "Your actions are reckless, dangerous, and a violation of every protocol," Clara said, her tone unyielding, each word deliberate. "You're endangering lives, mine, these shoppers, everyone's. Lower your weapon now. I need to make a call." "A call?" Laura laughed, a brittle, nervous sound that echoed in the stillness. "To your gang? To bust you out?" "No," Clara said, her voice dropping to a chilling calm, carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "To Sheriff Marcus Tate." The name hit Laura like a thunderbolt. Sheriff Marcus Tate, the no-nonsense head of Willow Creek's police department, was a legend in the town, a man known for his integrity, his fierce loyalty to those he trusted, and his zero-tolerance policy for misconduct. Laura's sneer faltered, her gun trembling more visibly. "You're lying," she spat, but her voice wavered. "The sheriff doesn't know people like you." Clara's eyes never wavered, her gaze piercing through Laura's bravado. "Marcus and I grew up together," she said, her voice low but resonant, each word landing like a stone. "I have his personal number. Let me get my phone from my pocket, or keep that gun on me and face the consequences when Marcus hears what you've done to his friend." Doubt crept into Laura's mind, her confidence crumbling under the weight of Clara's unshakable certainty. The mention of Tate's name, the casual familiarity, planted a seed of fear that grew with each passing second. Her gun shook more violently, her breaths coming in short, ragged gasps. "Fine," she snapped, her voice cracking with uncertainty. "Take it out, slowly, no tricks." "No." With deliberate care, Clara lowered her left hand, her movements slow and precise, as if handling a live grenade. She reached into the pocket of her cardigan, pulling out an old flip phone, its scratched surface a stark contrast to the sleek smartphones around her. She held it up, letting Laura see it clearly, then used her thumb to navigate the screen, finding a contact labeled M. Tate. She pressed the call button, and the line rang once, twice, in the suffocating silence. "Tate here," came a deep, familiar voice through the phone's tinny speaker. Laura's breath caught, her heart pounding so loudly she thought it might burst. Clara, keeping the call on speaker, spoke with calm authority, her voice steady despite the gun still trained on her. "Marcus, it's Clara Thompson," she said, her words clear and urgent. "I'm in Green Meadow Supermarket, aisle 7. Your officer, Laura Bennett, badge WC392, has a gun pointed at me. Things are bad. Can you get here?" A burst of urgency crackled through the phone, Marcus's voice sharp with alarm. "Clara, stay calm. I'm on my way now. Don't move." The call ended and Clara lowered the phone, her eyes never leaving Laura's. In that moment, Laura's world collapsed. Clara Thompson wasn't just anyone. She was Colonel Clara Thompson, Willow Creek's revered military hero, the first black woman from the town to rise to the rank of colonel in the U.S. Army. Marcus Tate's childhood friend, his sister in all but blood, a woman he spoke of with reverence at every town event. The woman Laura had insulted, accused, and threatened with a gun, all because of her own blind prejudice. Laura's face drained of color, her gun sagging in her hands. "Colonel? Colonel Thompson?" she stammered, her voice barely a whisper, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh God, I didn't know. I'm so sorry." "Lower your weapon, officer," Clara commanded, her voice carrying the authority of a leader accustomed to commanding thousands. It was not a request but an order, resonant with the weight of her experience. Laura, shaking, fumbled to holster the gun, her hands trembling so violently she nearly dropped it. Tears streamed down her cheeks, her voice breaking as she pleaded, "Please, Colonel, don't tell the sheriff. I beg you. I didn't know." Clara said nothing, her eyes heavy with disappointment, not vengeance. There was no triumph in her expression, only a profound sadness at the senseless hatred that had brought them to this moment. The crowd, realizing who she was, erupted in murmurs of shock and outrage. "That's Colonel Thompson," one woman gasped. "How dare she treat her like that?" Another hissed, her phone still recording. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder as they approached. Sheriff Marcus Tate burst into the supermarket, his casual clothes, a hoodie and jeans, doing nothing to diminish his commanding presence. His dark eyes blazed with a fury that seemed to shake the very walls, his broad shoulders tense as he took in the scene. Clara, standing tall and unharmed but stern. Laura, a trembling wreck, her gun now holstered, and the horrified crowd, their phones capturing every moment. "Bennett!" Marcus roared, his voice echoing through the aisle like a clap of thunder. "What in God's name have you done?" The aftermath was swift and unforgiving. Marcus strode toward Laura, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. "Hand over your weapon and badge," he ordered, his voice cold and unforgiving. "You're suspended, effective immediately. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's a disgrace." Laura sobbed, her hands shaking as she unbuckled her holster and removed the Willow Creek police badge from her uniform. "Sir, I'm sorry," she choked out, her voice barely audible. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean—" "A mistake?" Marcus interrupted, his voice dripping with contempt. "You call pointing a gun at an innocent woman, a hero of this town, in a crowded store a mistake? You call insulting Colonel Thompson, a woman I've known since we were kids, a mistake?" He turned to the two officers who had followed him in, their faces grim. "Sergeant Carter, Corporal Lee, take Officer Bennett to the station, straight to Internal Affairs. Seal her weapon and badge, and no contact with anyone until I say so." "Yes, sir," the officers replied in unison, stepping forward to escort the weeping Laura out. She stumbled, her head bowed, as the crowd's condemning stares followed her through the sliding doors. Marcus turned to Clara, his expression softening with guilt and concern. "Clara," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "are you okay? Do you need a doctor?" She shook her head, offering a faint, reassuring smile. "I'm fine, Marcus," she said, her voice steady but tinged with weariness. "Just disappointed. I didn't expect this, not here." "I'm so sorry," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "This never should have happened. I swear, I'll make this right." He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, a gesture of the deep bond they'd shared since childhood. The Willow Creek Police Department launched an immediate internal affairs investigation, treating the incident with the urgency it demanded. Clara's testimony, delivered with the precision and clarity of a military officer, recounted every detail. Laura's racist insults, her baseless accusations, and the horrifying moment she drew her gun. Witness accounts, including that of store manager Henry Walsh, corroborated her story, painting a vivid picture of Laura's aggression. Cell phone videos, captured by stunned shoppers, went viral on social media, showing Laura's arrogant demeanor, her abusive language, and the chilling sight of her gun trained on Clara. The footage sparked a wave of outrage, amplifying the pressure on the department to act decisively. Laura's body cam, though muffled in audio, provided indisputable visual evidence of her pointing a gun at an unarmed civilian in a crowded environment, a flagrant violation of use of force protocols. Her personnel file revealed a troubling pattern: multiple written reprimands for unprofessional behavior, several informal complaints about biased comments, and a history of leniency from supervisors who had overlooked early warning signs. The investigation concluded with a unanimous recommendation: permanent dismissal and referral to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Marcus, his jaw set with determination, signed the termination order without hesitation. He met personally with the district attorney, pledging full cooperation to ensure justice. The charges filed against Laura were severe: second-degree assault with a deadly weapon, reckless endangerment, and official misconduct. The racial motive, while not a separate charge under state law, was noted as a primary aggravating factor. Months later, the trial of Laura Bennett gripped Willow Creek, drawing media and community attention. The image of a young police officer facing justice for her racist and abusive actions against a revered black military hero sparked heated debate. Clara, dressed in her Army uniform sans medals to avoid swaying the jury, testified with unshakable calm. Her words, precise and unembellished, recounted the events in stark detail, from the initial harassment to the moment the gun was drawn. She spoke not with anger, but with a quiet authority, her presence commanding respect. Prosecutor Emily Chen presented an airtight case, bolstered by irrefutable evidence. The viral videos were played repeatedly, each frame a damning testament to Laura's actions. Witness testimonies, including Henry Walsh's emotional account of his failed attempt to intervene, aligned perfectly with Clara's. Expert analysis of police use of force policies underscored the recklessness of Laura's behavior. While the Internal Affairs report highlighted her history of misconduct, Chen emphasized the betrayal of public trust, the danger posed to innocent lives, and the deplorable racial motives that fueled the incident. Laura's defense team struggled to counter the evidence. They portrayed her as a stressed young officer, overwhelmed by the pressures of the job and misled by a misjudged threat. They argued that Clara's uncooperative demeanor had escalated the situation, a claim that fell flat against Clara's documented calm. They leaned on Laura's personal struggles, single motherhood, financial strain, and her tearful remorse in court, but these efforts were dwarfed by the weight of the evidence. The videos were indisputable, the witnesses consistent, and Clara's credibility unassailable. After a brief deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty on all counts. The courtroom was heavy with anticipation as Judge Elena Rivera, known for her fairness, prepared to deliver the sentence. Laura stood trembling, her family sobbing in the back row. Rivera's voice was solemn as she addressed the defendant. "Laura Bennett," she began, her eyes fixed on the former officer, "you were entrusted with the power and responsibility to protect this community. Instead, you let prejudice and rage guide your actions. You turned a deadly weapon on an innocent woman, a decorated veteran, a pillar of this town, because of her skin and appearance. Your actions endangered lives and eroded the trust that binds our society. While I acknowledge your remorse and personal challenges, the severity of your conduct demands accountability." Rivera paused, her gaze unwavering. "After considering all factors, I sentence you to 2 years in prison, to be served immediately." Laura collapsed in sobs, the clink of handcuffs echoing as bailiffs led her away. For many, the sentence was a bittersweet victory, not as harsh as some had hoped, but a clear statement that abuse of power would not be tolerated. The incident sent shockwaves through Willow Creek, exposing deep wounds and sparking a reckoning. Marcus, determined to rebuild trust, overhauled the police department. Mandatory training on bias, cultural sensitivity, and de-escalation became rigorous and frequent. Recruitment processes were tightened to screen for prejudice, and body cam policies were strictly enforced. Disciplinary actions for misconduct were swift and transparent, with no room for leniency. In a packed town hall, Marcus apologized to Clara and the community, his voice heavy with resolve. "We failed you," he said, "but we will do better. I stake my career on it." Clara, ever humble, resumed her quiet life. She volunteered with veterans, mentored youth, and shared coffee with Marcus at their favorite diner, their bond unshaken by the ordeal. She declined most media requests, shunning the spotlight, but her story spread quietly, a testament to her courage and grace. She became a symbol of dignity and resilience, a reminder that strength lies not in vengeance, but in standing tall against injustice. Clara's story is a powerful reminder that true strength is found in composure and integrity, even in the face of hatred. Prejudice, left unchecked, can destroy lives, but courage and accountability can pave the way for healing and change. Let us confront bias with clarity, stand firm in adversity, and work tirelessly to build a world where respect and justice are universal. Our actions, no matter how small, shape the society we leave behind. Choose wisely and let dignity be your guide.